Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
All right, we're back again. Today is Tyler, me, Aaron Foster, and then Chris Miller, a buddy of mine, who is a firefighter outside the DC metro area. He's actually did some work for me, which is how we got acquainted. I met him through a bunch of friends. So, Chris, kind of give me your elevator pitch of where you came from before the fire department and how you got in the fire department.
All right. So Chris Miller, born and raised in West Virginia. Grew up with my dad and grandfather as volunteer firemen. The small town that we grew up in, Elkins, West Virginia. He was. My dad was also in the Army, so it's like growing up, it was either the fire department or the Army. By the time I reached high school, he'd already deployed twice. So I kind of had to step in as the father figure, to support my sister and my mother. And, the guys at the firehouse really stepped in and filled that void that my dad left while he was deployed. So, fast forward to high school when you're making those decisions, was the last deployment that he was on I think I was a sophomore in high school. And, I just really saw the toll the military lifestyle took on the family, and then how the fire department family stepped up and took care of us. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So I had one of the career guys, I was one of the 3 paid guys at the firehouse that I grew up at. Actually, when he was 18, 19 years old, did the whole live-in program at Rockville. So I learned, through the whole student live-in program that Montgomery College had the fire science program. And then when it came to, applying for schools, I, did a couple of ride-alongs before I got out of high school. It was the right fit for me. And then 18, graduated high school and moved to Station 3 in Rockville. Then growing up, kind of on the business side of things, I always saw these guys in the fire department. They were working overtime or they had some type of, odd end job, or they are their own business owners, and so they're always filling that void with something. So it was just kind of natural for me to get into something once I got settled in my fire department career. I ended up getting hired, and took me a little longer than most. It was about 4 years. Started applying when I was 18, and took about till I was 22, and I've been working. Now I'm in my 11th year, and I started the business back in 2015. Once basically wanted to wait till I got off probation, kind of got all my classes, got squared away with that the business was, that wasn't a takeaway from my actual career. And then in 2015, threw some ideas around, looked at a couple different ideas, fell in love with the whole concept of being a chimney sweep, looked it up naturally. What do you, the fire department, teaches you everything you do, you start, with some type of certification. So I looked it up, and it's where I found the CSIA certification, which is out in Indiana, and that's Indianapolis, the suburbs of the city. And went out there, got, basically at that point I was just on paper. There was didn't have any employees, didn't even have I think I had a business name, I was established, as far as a business goes for tax credits, but didn't really have a plan yet. And went out there, got certified, met some good people, and came back certified, and just found some fire department guys to work with me, and we just kind of took off from there.
So just to take a step back, so we always talk about network, right? Who who you're connected to, and using your network to open doors. So it's funny that when I was a kid, we used to have block parties. We'd block the street off and have to throw a big party in there. and the fire chief would come. So the fire chief's last name was Mr. Hind. So Mr. Hind's son ended up being one of my recruits in the academy when I was in charge of fitness and training. And then he is now one of the aides with my chief in the fire department in DC. And he is also the volunteer chief out in Rockville, which is where Chris used to volunteer and do the live-in program. And Chris also did the fire science program at the same college I did. I just went a little bit different direction afterwards. So we have very similar paths that we've taken. And I think it's kind of cool that we've come together and connected, because Chris is from a small town in West Virginia. And the next town over, his mom and a friend of mine's mom actually were very close. And the friend's mom, his name's Billy. Billy ended up living with me and renting from me years ago when he was coming to DC to be a DC firefighter. So it's funny how the connections all come together, one day come to a head. And that's one of the things with me and Chris, like we're very similar in personalities, and our network is very close to where we have a lot of things in common. So that's how me and Chris came to be connected. And I just thought it was,
I was saying there's not that many degrees of separation, that's for sure.
No. Eventually we're going to cross paths at some point. And also his firehouse that he's at now took care of my uncle when he was sick, which is also a small, another connection. I thought that was kind of cool. He's at the place that I volunteered at for a while, 25 years ago. And it's just kind of neat. So now Chris owns a company. So without me explaining it, why don't you give me the overview of the company?
Okay. So it's the name of the company is Traditions Chimney Sweeps. We're an LLC, and we are basically at this point, we're a full service chimney company. So if it touches a chimney, if it's either wood, fire, pellet, or gas, we're servicing it or, retrofitting, depending upon, what your needs are. Our bread and butter is basically sweeps and inspection. So you come, if you have a fireplace or a wood appliance or gas appliance, you have an annual service. So we come in and do an inspection, do a cleaning or a service of that appliance. If there's, it could be just as simple as routine maintenance, or you're looking to take something that's, that's an old wood burning fireplace that doesn't produce heat and turn it into something that's going to be more efficient and meet today's, codes and standards. And just kind of pivot on the whole like networking thing. And it's, as far as like, business goes, I mean, you're dealing with, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, it's, there's literally, a lot of opportunities. And, as far as just day-to-day trades that you're dealing with when it comes to this. So, not being afraid to, ask people what they do and the connections they have. I think it's, that today I ran into a guy that led me to 2 jobs, and that's just by shaking hands, being nice and communicating with somebody and seeing what they actually do. But yeah, we relocated up till this last July or this last month. We were based out of Montgomery County, and now we're in the Carroll County side of Mount Airy. So that's been
so anybody who's listening,
moving your home.
They're closer to Baltimore than they are to DC now. That's what he's trying to say.
Yeah. So we moved basically 45 minutes to an hour out of our normal service area as far as the business goes. Where we're currently based, we used to be, we'd only come up here, a few times a year. So now it's going to be, our home game. We're still going to be running, our service calls and our, down, back in, 45 minutes down the way. So it's kind of just flip flop from what we're used to. Just different demographics, different people, different needs. This is more, people have firewood. So it's like more, you're getting into, instead of gas that we did a lot in Montgomery County, we're going to see a lot more wood appliances up here.
So this is my actionable item. And this is what me and Chris talked about this past year. He did an insert for me and a new liner in my fireplace. So as of 2023, there's a federal tax credit that covers 30% of your purchase and your installation costs for a qualifying wood stove, there must be, I think, like 75% efficiency of the insert, pellet or wood, not just wood. What pellet or wood? It has to be 75, I think, efficiency to get the tax credit of 30%. There's a $2,000 cap. So that's actually one of the reasons I got it, was because I'll be here for another 5 years or so, and I wanted a fireplace that actually produced heat. So we went back and forth. I ordered the wrong one because the information the website provided wasn't accurate, and it didn't match what the government agency said. So we had to cancel that one and order another one. So Chris worked with me on ordering the right one where I can get the tax credit to write off 30% of the cost and installation, which actually I can heat just about my entire house with this little pellet or this really small wood stove, and it's great. But how did you pick the wood stove business to get, or the stove business to get into? Like, why that?
I think it just kind of, I grew up, in the mountains of West Virginia. So like just the natural, everyone had some type of either, wood fireplace, wood stove, outdoor heater. And then what really kind of intrigued me was the code aspect that I could relate to the fire department. And then realistically, like there was, you'd run these chimney fires all the time, and, in the fire department, and you're like, why is this happening? And it just kind of like, it was all separate over time. But then like when it all came together to like, I really, enjoy this, I can get down with this. And so it's, to me, it's the making the things, more efficient, but safe. You're literally inviting fire into your house. And I mean, just through the years, 9 out of 10 chimneys that we inspect, there's significant, deficiencies. And there's every year in the metropolitan DC area, there's lost lives because of, improper venting or clearance to combustibles, so it's a real thing. So like for me to be able to like the life safety aspect that that naturally attracted me to the fire department, I also convey that to the business model of, protecting people when they actually invite fire into their house. So that was cool. That's the cool part, I guess, why I'm still doing it, why, I believe in it, and the importance of it.
So to get certified to work on chimneys, like what's the process look like? Like, do you have to go somewhere? Do you take a test? Do you take a class? Is it just generic? Like what's it look like?
I mean, it's all over the place, unfortunately. If you do it right, yeah, there's like any other trade that you do. There's certifications that you take. I hold the National Fireplace Institute, CSIA is the Chimney Safety Institute of America. It's just to name a few. But there's local, there's other classes that you can get into, just to tie on, like when you get into your gas stuff, your pellet, your wood. To work on chimneys, like most states, you have to have a contracting license. So there's all types of licensing that you have to have. But just to go inspect a chimney, there's no governing body that tells a company that, hey, you have to do this to operate a business, which is I'm still surprised. Maybe it'll change over the years. To be an electrician, or a plumber, there's an apprenticeship program that takes you, years before you can start your own business and do your own thing. Which I don't know why that's not the same, as far as when it comes to venting appliances, if it's, wood, fire, pellet or gas. And that's so it's, you guys could, tomorrow start a chimney company and advertise as such, and get a camera and look up some YouTube videos and advertise. But there's nobody that's going to tell you that you can't do that without, the certification. The certifications for us, it brings value. It educates us. I think it puts the customer at ease that you look at people, you're like, hey, these guys are taking the effort. At the end of the day, the customers don't know. What they don't ask you when you walk through the door, let me see your credentials to show you to be here. They're just, you've done your marketing. You've done your marketing. They've done their research, based off of reviews and your webpage, and then they called you to request the service. So it's, as far as like to go back to be a chimney sweep, or some that repair chimneys. There's a lot of classes out there, but there's no one class that you actually have to take, which is kind of ironic. Like I said, compared to the other trades.
So like I'm looking at a list of like common fireplace issues, because I feel like every time I sell a house, they have somebody come inspect it, and it's the same issue. Like there's separation, creosote buildup in the flue, debris blockage, physical damage to the masonry. I know with mine, when you looked at mine, the vent wasn't working properly. Birds putting nests in them. People burning stuff inside of them that gum up and cause creosote inside the fireplace. Like, what are some common calls you get for fireplaces? Like, what's your bread and butter for these things? Is it the install like you did for me, or is it repair, replacement, renovation? Like, what are the common things you're getting called out for?
Most time, if it's outside your annual service, which is recommended annually, to be honest with you, I mean that's what the industry standard is an annual inspection. The inspection is it's basically like a home inspection of your chimney. So we're doing a top to bottom, everything in between. You're getting in the attic, we're getting on the roof, we're sending a live video camera up the flue, and that's where you really find out what's going on, is the inspection. As far as most people will call me like, hey, I just need my chimney cleaned or swept. That's only eliminating the actual the creosote that's built up in there over use. But if you have a missing tile or a gap in the liner where products of combustion can escape outside of that flue system, that's where the real issue is. Or if you have a high heat event like a chimney fire, now you have this hole that's in the flue that can now escape into the surroundings in the attic, and now you have you don't just have a chimney fire, you have a structure fire. So that's our bread and butter, and our foot in the door is most of the time people calling just for, hey, I need my chimney cleaned. Well, then we kind of back them up and like, well, yeah, you do need it swept, but like the inspection side of it, like we wouldn't just come to anybody's house without doing a full inspection. And that's just it protects the customer, and it's a liability thing for us. Because if I just ran in there and spent 30 minutes in your house and just ran a brush up it and said, yeah, it's clean, but I didn't inspect it, I don't know what is above there, and then you light a fire and you have some issue, then you're going to come after me. So that's why we kind of we do the inspection to CYA, but it's also at the same time it's protecting the homeowner. And it's just the education part of it. But like in the summertime, as far as you get these hot, humid days, especially in the East Coast, the area that we service, we get a lot of rain. So those hot, muggy days, people start to get odors in their chimneys. You get downdrafts, and that's where you start to get a lot of calls. Or like you got issues around the, kind of like yours. You were having a roof put on the same day that we were doing the installation of the wood stove liner, like the flashing, like making sure the flashing's good and the top of the chimney's not cracked. So like for us with the the winters, with the freeze and thaw cycles that we experience, that's where we see a lot of the masonry damage that causes a lot of water related issues within the home. So it's not just the usage of the fireplaces, it's out the outside elements getting in and keeping them out.
It's kind of like,
bring up
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tyler.
I was gonna say, well, it's kind of like when I was listening to you, it's kind of like somebody takes their car into a dealership to get an oil change, and then they inspect a bunch of other stuff. And you take that opportunity to educate the customers. Hey, yeah, you do need your chimney swept, but you have all of these other issues. For when I'm buying, selling, flipping houses, I was going to say a lot of the stuff that I've seen is the flashing's messed up, top of the chimney's cracked, masonry work needs to be redone. And then I've had to replace, in Idaho, we've actually had to replace a lot of the pellet stoves. And we've switched those pellet stoves out too. So I did know you're saying we. So when you started, was it just you, and have you added people? Is it still just you? How many people do you have that work with or for you?
So I started out myself, just going out, getting certified. Obviously, I knew we're going to need to add people as we grew. The biggest thing is, and it's like kind of like the safety standpoint that we all learned in the fire department. It's like having a buddy, right? You're climbing ladders, getting on roofs. God forbid, if you'd fall off a roof, it's going to be bad enough. But at least you'd have somebody there to call 911 for you to get you help. So, we take safety is kind of the big thing. So we try to run at least 2 people per crew. And that's just that's kind of where we go with that. But I brought on, right off the, started out just doing friends and family in West Virginia, just to kind of get my feet wet, see what I needed to do, kind of work out some kinks as far as equipment goes. When I came back, started working in Maryland, I brought in my buddy Nick, brought him on, kind of got him certified. He was kind of my right-hand man all the way through. And at one point, we were up to 5 guys. Most guys were other firemen that were just looking for, things to do outside of working overtime. For me, part of being a business owner is the time that you can, time is the most valuable thing in life. And you grow. You don't, at 18 years old, you don't think that way. Get some age, get a family, get some kids, and you realize how precious time is. And being a business owner, allows you to set your schedule. You're going to work harder than most people. It's not becoming a business owner. You just automatically, I can just do whatever I want. You're going to be working twice as hard as most people, but it's on your dime. It's on your schedule. And that's the perks of it. And that's, one of the reasons that I, when you're for the fire department, you're working another 24 hours. So you're already gone a third of your life. So now you're 2/3 away, not that you're working, not every off one shift, but it could be a minimum of 10 hours, so it's now you're not getting home. You're gone for 36 hours, 48 hours, and you're blown, you're tired, you start having issues, with sleep and, everything. It's just downhill from there. So it's I'd rather work my shift at the firehouse when I have to. And then, on my off days, it's on my time, it's not the government's time. So, but as far as getting back to the original question, since we relocated, I lost some guys. Just firemen are spoiled; they can sign up for overtime, and they don't. I think there's a mix of us where they see the opportunity, but they're not in it for the long game, right? The commitment's not there. It's just easier for them to sign up and telestaff and get the 10 hours overtime. But what they don't realize is when you retire, you don't have that, right? So, for me, it's when I can walk away at 20 years, maybe do the drop, be in my, early 40s. And then I have this passive income, to offset that, where I don't have to work into my 50s and my 60s. And that's, so right now, as far as people go, I am, you're looking at it. So when we transitioned up here, a lot of the guys were, they didn't want to come with me just for the distance. Nick, which was my operations manager, he decided that he wasn't going to come up this way. So, now I've just literally, that's what I've been doing this afternoon is, calling people for interviews. So I got a guy that's got some experience, worked for another company. We're going to meet up this Thursday and Friday. And, he worked for a company that basically it's been around in the Baltimore area for about 30 years, and they just closed shop. They were retired. They didn't, they didn't have someone come in and buy it. And, so he was one of their lead technicians. So, I think he'll be a good fit. And then next Monday, I have a guy that has no experience, but he comes from the construction background. So he's going to do a ride along with me and see, if that's something that he wants to do. So, the kind of, I'll just kind of get on a rant, I guess. I don't know. But the key to business is, you have to adapt. You have to pivot. You have to be able to, it's gonna be tough. It's never gonna be easy. You're gonna have your ups and downs. It's gonna be a roller coaster. You have to put out fires, but at the same time, you just can't stop. You can't just let little today I was riding around and at one point I had 5 people and a full-time person, and now it's me riding around the truck by myself. But I still know the big picture. I know what this opportunity that business has to, to grow it. I know the opportunity to, to be able to scale it and to make it into something that's, that's going to be profitable. It's going to, buy me time. It's going to have maybe opportunities for my kids to, to take over something, if they want to, when they get to that age. So I think that's the big, for any business that you're in, you're going to have to be, the key is just, keep your head on a swivel, be willing to, kind of not get stuck doing one thing, and keeping your, just being able to pivot and adapt to the changes that are thrown at you.
So I'm gonna step back real quick. So when Chris was working on my house, I was having my roof replaced. I had a derecho come through College Park and messed up my roof. So insurance was paying for it to replace it. And while they were replacing it, they changed. This is just for conversation purposes. They put a smaller decking on, thinner decking, so it looks like the outside of my roof ridges flare upwards. So Chris the whole time was like, "Man, they don't have tarping down." He's like, "Are you sure?" Like, he's like, "I don't want to overstep my bounds, but they're not really doing a good job." So, and they're not. And it's funny is that today I got a letter. I filed a claim against their insurance company, and today they said the insurance was not going to cover it because they don't cover after installation unless I can prove that it was faulty. So now I'm going to go up to the company itself for installing improper installation. But yeah, Chris was there and saw the whole thing, and he was like, "How's that going for you?" So it's funny that it's nice to have a second set of eyes on it, to be like, okay, like it's not me. Like I have got a second set of eyes of somebody who also knows roofs, who's like, this doesn't look right, but I don't want to overstep my bounds. Like, hey man, like just keep an eye on this. Like, look at this. Let me know what you think. But so, all right, let's go back to the business acquisition. Tyler's got a question. Tyler, go ahead with that one.
Yeah, I was just curious because when you were talking, I was thinking, oh, it's interesting if that company shut their doors. I've seen a lot of people recently. I was hunting with a guy last year who's a locksmith, and he ended up he was at a job across the street, saw another locksmith that had a for sale sign, ended up going in there, buying the guy's business or book of business, and then was able to salvage a bunch of customers out of that. So I was curious if you had pursued that, and it looks like you at least have a plan in order to do so and see what you can do with that.
Yeah, I think so. Up until I moved up this way, it really wasn't in my. It was in more the Baltimore area than the DC area that I was in. Now I'm kind of I'm more geographically. Like I can be in DC in an hour, and I can be in Baltimore in 45 minutes. So like for business, I'm in a better position that I can service basically two metropolitan, DC, areas between the Baltimore and the DC area. So as far as growth goes, I'm kind of in a good spot because I can be, I could be 45 minutes, like I said, to an hour, I can be in two different cities. And then all the suburbs in between those two. I wasn't aware of I'd known a guy that's not the guy that I actually interviewed. I kind of knew that they were closing doors. I just didn't know the timing. With me moving and things like that, I just, timing's kind of everything. I said, at least, pick up on some cheap equipment. And that's what we talked to, because I know he's got a list of stuff that, I could walk in there and pick up some, tools, at least, scaffolding, whatever, just to just help stock me up. And then he, as far as acquiring the business, I just don't know where they stand. Like it might be like it sounded like they just kind of closed shop. They didn't even put it on the market, or they were even looking at like positioning themselves to do that. And that's like I see that a lot too. Businesses, they don't set themselves up to be marketable when they go to retire. So it's like having a plan in place, like how you can, basically make your business worth, you might make $1 million, but that doesn't mean your business is worth $1 million. So that's kind of a lot of people that are in that old school that's been in the business, 30, 40 years, unless they're smart in business, got some help, they didn't really position themselves to have a business that was to even be sold. Like now I have a company that I'm kind of in their market, they just closed up shop. So all their customers are going to be looking for other chimney sweeps. So naturally, by just targeting that service area with my marketing, I should be able to pick up, maybe not the entire customer list, but at least a percentage of it.
So looking at the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, it says 1 out of 5 businesses will fail the first year. Up to 90% of all new businesses fail. So there's, especially now that we have a lot of baby boomers starting to retire, like getting that age group, like they're going to close up shop or they're going to sell the company. So in this case, if he put this thing on the market, or if he didn't, or if you want to go acquire, I'm going to ask both you guys this. So what do you think the benefit is to go after businesses like this when you're trying to establish your own there? Like, what's the benefits?
Well, for me, I was thinking what he mentioned, you can probably get a lot of equipment at a discount, and he already knows what he's looking for. And because they are not positioned to sell it, it's not a marketable company. If you could just harvest that email list or that phone list or anything like that at a significant discount, or who knows, I mean, maybe they'll hand it off to you because they don't have any idea that information is valuable. I think it's like anything, right? You can go out and organically build a book, or go out there and market to it. Or if you have this pre-existing list, and I'm guessing if they weren't situated well enough to sell the company, maybe their customer service, their follow-up, all of that wasn't top notch, you can go in there and blow them away because you're operating at a higher level. I don't know. For me, it's like, hey man, if I could just pop in there and get equipment or the list at a discount, or who knows, I would think you can get the list pretty cheap, but the equipment for sure, if they're selling it and they haven't positioned themselves, I think it would be better suited than somebody who is savvy and they're selling their business as a whole.
Chris, what do you think? Like,
I think,
is there anything additional on top of that?
Yeah. No, I agree to that. And I think just from, experience of taking some classes, and, I've set through some stuff like, the next chapter type stuff where these guys, these consultants come in and they kind of set you up for making your business to be profitable when you do go to sell, if you want to sell or pass it on, or however you want to do it. And a lot of that is, it's just being able to literally have policies and procedures for everything. Like if you can, like, handing me your customer list, like, okay, well that's cool, but like I don't need a business that's not profitable to begin with. Like I don't know what your employees are like. Your overhead, like all that other stuff that comes on top of it. Like if you have a true business that is policy driven, and it's got good employees, the equipment's up to date, that makes you more curb appealing. And I think that's just a lot of like, people don't do that. They don't have that. It's just kind of not fly by night or seat of their pants, but it's just, they've just run it. They're just a different mindset than maybe today, or they were tradesmen that like saw an opportunity and they got lucky for 30 years. But like, as far as like selling their multi-million-dollar business for $1 million, it ain't going to cut it.
So I think we're lucky too, because we operate in as firemen, that we operate where we have SOPs and SOGs for everything, and a lot of us naturally carry that over to businesses. And I was talking to a guy that I came on with. He basically, when I was a boot fireman, he helped me out. They started doing care facilities for disabled adults, and they stand out because they're so SOP and SOG driven that the governing bodies were really impressed. And like you mentioned, policy driven. Not a lot of tradesmen get into a trade thinking, oh, I'm going to operate a business. They're good tradesmen and maybe lack on the business side. So with that, if you have both, I think that increases your value and your profitability throughout the course of your business and when you're going to sell. Sorry, Aaron.
No, that's good information.
I agree.
I think that all that was needed to be said. So right now there's a website called Biz Buy Sell, right? So there's businesses being sold every single day. So in DC right now, there's 127 businesses for sale. In Maryland, there's 671 businesses for sale. And these are ones that just know about the website. So you can actually just step into some of these businesses and do an add value. So like say Chris did take over this business. Say this guy he owned the storefront and he owned the business and he owned the equipment and he had guys working for him. He could literally just step in and take over the real estate if he wanted to. He could take over the workers if they're up to his standard of work. and then use the equipment that's on site, as long as it all has like a value to it, the people and the equipment. So like there's opportunities out there. If somebody doesn't want to start from the ground up, Tyler likes to say, started off as a boot. We just call them rookies. Like you got to earn your keep from the ground up. There's other opportunities to step in, like cross transfer as a lieutenant or a chief or something like that. Like same thing for a business. You can buy into a business and operate it. But that being said, like when I was a kid, my dad worked for a company, and a new investor came in and bought the company, and the company went under within 6 months because the new operator didn't know how to operate that business correctly. So if you're going to buy into something, this is anybody, if you're going to buy into something, you should do some background research and see if you know or don't know anything about it. I was just texting some retired and some active chiefs in my department because I have an idea of something to do in DC and I need more insight because they know more than I do. But this is what I'm like, same concept is if this existing business I can buy and I can make money off it immediately, then why wouldn't I? I can just use money from another investment to buy this one and then profit from it from here on out. So Chris, the one that you're looking at, like you said, you have an appointment to talk to the previous owner or the owner.
So I interviewed the guy that currently worked with him or worked for the company, and then he's like good friends. Like he's one of the lead persons in the company. So basically, I mean, this is all within like 2 hours ago. So I'm going to get his number and just I need a reference, to talk about this potential guy that I'm going to hire, and then also talk about what else he has to offer as far as equipment or what's his plan as far as there could have been already somebody that stepped in there and did that, but I'm not sure. So all that's new, but at least try to get some equipment at a discounted rate, and maybe some potential clients on this side of, or just at least networking with him to see what he has to offer.
So I think that it's important to note that the relationship that you're trying to build with the new guy might lead to more opportunities later on. And we talked about this in the beginning, was if you can harbor these relationships and grow, then, why wouldn't you,
Right.
So, I mean, this is all fresh for 2 hours ago. I'm curious to see how this shakes out because I think it's a good opportunity to either get more equipment, get more people, or get more contacts and contracts from this guy and see if he actually has them and what his area of operation is. So you said that you just moved from, you moved about 45 minutes north of where you were before and you lost your guys. And I met a couple of your guys a couple of times when they were doing some jobs. So, did you foresee that obstacle when you moved north?
For some of the guys, like you could just see over time where it was just like, they started out like gung ho, like ready to, not do overtime and do things like that. And then I think just life gets in the way, a couple of them are younger and they, between probably the last time, like that, in the last year, let's say, they both had a kid, you know what I mean? So it's like, you add that obstacle and it's like, so it's like for them, it was more, it was the excuse. I would call it an excuse is like, I just don't have the time. It was all time. And I'm like, in my mind, it's like, what do you think I'm doing? You know what I mean? I got a business owner. I got my own kids. I got like, it's just life. Like people just, I think they just, they get stuck being comfortable. And I think that's the biggest thing about whatever you do outside of, whatever business it is or outside of your career. If you take on a second career is, you can't be comfortable. You can't be scared to take risk. And to answer your question, no, I didn't foresee, losing all the guys. One guy, our full-time guy, that, he was at the house with you. He actively was pursuing to try to be an electrician, which, if that's what you grew up wanting to do, like, I'm not going to stop you for that. I'll support you. And I wrote letters of recommendation to do that. And, for him was, he would have to come up here, 5 days a week and travel 45 minutes one way. So I get it. Like I could kind of foresee that. As far as like my right-hand man, like stepping away, I didn't expect that. I very much blindsided. I mean, I told him, and we're still great friends today. I told him, I was like, listen, man, like, I don't agree to your decision, but I got to respect your decision. And I think that's it's just business, right? You can't, a friendship is more important than a business relationship, right? So if you're not happy, it's with anything that you do. Like if it's causing tensions at your home life, or just, every day you wake up and you're not happy at doing something, then don't do it. You know what I mean? There's other stuff out there that you can do. So yeah, I was, it was a lot. It's still a lot, to get over with, just moving alone and, trying to navigate that and get your personal life squared away. And then, you got this business, the phone's still ringing, and things are, are going on, outside of, out of your control. So, but it's just, staying focused, being able to, just like I said, just, adapt and overcome and, figure things out. Stick to your guns, I guess.
So where you're at now. So where you're at now. So I'm trying to figure out how to pivot this conversation. So you're 45 minutes north, and people who are listening who are like Texas, like 45 minutes is like an afternoon drive for me, no big deal. But like in this area, 45 minutes drive
Right.
can be like 5 miles. Like the traffic here is horrendous. Apparently we're number 8 in the
Right.
country for the worst traffic in this country. Tyler, I think, is like number 3 or number 4. Then there's like Boston, Philly, a couple other ones. But like when you tell somebody like, oh, I'm 20 miles away, like 20 miles away can take an hour and a half in this area to drive because traffic's so
Right.
bad. So like, are you going to change your demographic area that you're going to operate in? Because obviously you still are going to be in Montgomery County, the Montgomery County, Howard County area, which is
Right.
anybody's listening, just between like Baltimore and DC. Baltimore and DC are only a half hour apart. So like there's only 3 counties between us. So are you going to change the area that you're working in because now you have to rehire and driving is different? Like, how does that look?
So my plan is to be able to, I want the guys that are going to show up every day where they're, obviously like coming from this area where they're not, because at the end of the day, right, like you got to, if it's convenient for somebody, then it's going to be more appealing to them, right? Like obviously there's some people out there that don't mind it at all, but if it was me getting off at 5 o'clock and I have to drive an hour home and I'm not getting home at 6 o'clock, I'm probably not going to stay there very long. So like, my idea, and I think I have better pool of people from here, we're kind of out, kind of back to my roots as far as like country living goes. So I got like a lot of a blue collar workforce, to pull from, guys that are, grew up on farms that, they I don't have to teach them to run a skill saw or, that just the basic stuff, you know what I mean? Like, so like, as far as, and like, I mean, just posting on Indeed, like I went live last week with it, and I went through like 40 applicants. You know what I mean? Like I've called a handful. I mean, there's no reason that like people are hungry, and now it's not all qualified, candidates and stuff like that. Like I've only probably out of the 40, I've only really spoke to like 6 of them. So, but it's just what I'm looking for at my current time. Like they would probably be good if I had multiple trucks and multiple crews. They would probably be really good apprentices, but I'm looking for somebody that's got a skill set that I can kind of like, I need somebody that I can kind of not have to babysit. And then I need a good apprentice that I can like, between 2 of us that have the skill set and the trade to be able to teach. So that, it's just kind of, it's more, maybe I wasn't rejecting them because of who they are or their resume, but it's just what's going to fit my business at the current time. But yeah, as far as like changing the demographics of the area, so I'm working with like my marketing people that runs our website and our Google stuff, and we're just kind of plugging and playing, like adding in service areas. So when you Google search, our new area that we're going to start to organically pop up in that area. Now that's going to take time, right? But and then we'll still service our old area. I'll probably just be a little bit more picky and choosing, not going down there for the BS, call outs and stuff like that, or I'll refer them to people that I would recommend down that way. But if it's something that's in our wheelhouse, it's worth the time and effort, absolutely. And it just comes to scheduling. We don't like to, we like to kind of schedule like a box alarm. Like we're going to be in this area at a certain time and day, so we're going to split like all of our appointments, so we're not, not wasting time, we're not wasting fuel. And then, like for me, it's like I'm going to divide, basically, for the sake of the area, basically, if it's south of 70, then that we can schedule on a day. If it's north of 70, that's going to be a different day. So yeah, I mean, it's just as far as the area and things like that, it's just going to take time as far as showing up when people
So what does your equipment look like? What does your equipment look like? Because so like most of the people, when they think about a chimney sweep, they think of like Mary Poppins with a guy with a broom. He's sweeping the chimney. So like what does equipment look like for you guys? Because I mean, I know your rig, I know what you got.
Besides your top hat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
I'm not going
it's
to
funny, the industry. So you go to these conventions and these trade schools and stuff, and there's still this breed of people that've been in the trade for like 30, just like the salt dogs in the fire department, man. Like they're, they still want to wear their 3/4 boots and their long coats. Well, and there's still guys out there that want to wear top hats, so, but it's for us, we're just trying, industry, they're really pushing safety. So like all of us, we're like, when you get certified now, you wear a Petzl hard hat, basically climbing helmet. So if you're on a roof, like our policy is like, if you're on the roof, you're wearing a helmet, maybe not when I was at your house, because you probably make fun of me. So, it's a one-story rancher, but for the most part, we're definitely pushing, and there's a couple guys that are, there's actually a guy out of California, and there's a guy, out of like Virginia Beach area, and they were both in the fire department at some capacity, or emergency, like maybe one guy was a paramedic, I don't know, but they started called Rooftop Safety, and it's a company, and they basically they're like gurus with ropes, and they basically took what we know in the fire department aspect and put it into like a trade oriented, rooftop safety class, and they go around teaching classes all over the country. So that's pretty cool. But as far as like, yeah, we're not wearing top hats, we're wearing hard hats, and then as far as equipment goes, I mean, you got the traditional, inspection cameras, and the sweeping rods went from like old school, like, push rods, to we're hooking stuff up to, battery powered, drills, and we're spinning the rod so you get a better cleaning. And then, as far as repairing goes, it's, your traditional, your think of a general contractor. Half of my truck is DeWalt tools, and the other side's like chimney sweep, related stuff. So it's we got big like HEPA vacuums, like that's the stuff that kind of separates us as far as equipment. Like it's just dust control. It's wearing respirators and things like that. I mean, it's a dirty job. It can definitely, between the masonry side of things, and then just the dust that the creosote, when you sweep a chimney. So it's respiratory protections is key, for the longevity of our career too, just like wearing your SCBA at the firehouse.
I really thought you're going to be a Milwaukee guy. I didn't think you're going to be DeWalt, but I'm not judging.
I got a lot of DeWalt in my garage.
Milwaukee's got some. I'd love to see a pool on like where people go, because it's such a 50-50 split. But Milwaukee's got some cool stuff that DeWalt doesn't. It's like tempting, but it's like then the whole battery thing, man. That's what costs. Like, I don't care about the tool. The tools are cheap. It's the batteries that cost so much money. It's but that's another debate.
You made me think too when you said that about, like, it's funny. I look now, like, because my dad
growing up as a finished carpenter, contractor his whole life. I judge a lot of people by how their work truck looks, man, and how organized it is. And it's funny. I was driving down my street
Yeah.
the other day, and this plumber was working on a house. And it's funny. Down the street, there's a captain from my department that lives there, and this is the guy doing work on his house. He had his work van open, and it looked like his tools had been in where the car had rolled over like 10 times. And it was I was like, who in their right mind would, if I saw that guy open up his van, I would be nice and polite and listen to what he had to say. But as soon as he left, I'm like, there's no way I'm hiring that dude, because that's a reflection of how my house is going to look while he's working on it.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's funny that you said that, because I looked at your truck, dude, on your Facebook page. It looks nice, clean. Yeah. It's like well, like marked up. To me, I'll be okay. Instantly more credibility just based off of that, because of what I saw. I've never seen you work, but I have a pretty good idea of how you would operate based off of stuff like that. And like I said, I told my son, who's only 8, I'm like, Tuck, do not ever have, because I bet my life he's going to the trades. I'm like, that is not how you want your truck to look when you show up to somebody's house.
I mean, he's got, this is one, I actually asked you about your trucks when I saw you, because we were talking about like how much they cost, because I've been looking at vans again. And I was like, he's got nice rigs, and they're wrapped professionally, and they're marketed well, and they have a nice visual appeal. Like, that's important for business. Like, if you don't have the visual appealing aspect of it, like if it's generic, it reflects on your job.
It's everything.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that, I mean, if we each had a separate service vehicle, I think it would all be the same. And it just stems from the fire department, because everything has a place. Everything is, it's clean before it goes back on. It's, it's maintained, and, and I think that's just it. The fire department I mean, you don't want to say this fireman, but it is a business, and it's a really good business. Take the politics out of and the government aspect of it that you have to deal with. But as far as like the policies and the way we manage people, and, like actually care about people, like, you can take a lot of stuff from the firehouse and the policies that are there. And if you just implement that into your own business, you're going to be, tenfold from your competition that doesn't have that background. That's my dog. So, sorry about that.
I have a question for you. No worries. My dog's usually barking and disturbing everybody. I have a question for you. I saw on your website, and
that's quiet.
You offer financing.
I can get her. You just give me.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah, we do. You want me to stop her real quick?
Go for it.
Sure.
This is part of it. Hold on one second. Give me 1 second.
What do you think? So Tyler, the last podcast that we were on, Tyler's dogs were barking.
Yeah.
And then usually my dog is the one barking at anybody who walks by the house. So obviously we're all dog guys. So sorry about the podcast, but yeah, I've got 2 giants who, if you're walk by my house, then they let you know that you're not allowed to be on their street.
Yep. Well, and while he's gone too, we can. Oh, here he comes. So
no, we're good. We're back in business.
Okay, so what I was going to ask you, Chris, is I saw on your website that you guys offer financing, and for me, I'm always curious about that. Is that an additional profit center? Does that help you as far as your individual estimates go? Does that help you generate more revenue? What does that look like, and what was the decision behind that, if you don't mind?
So I mean, it's just like with anything. It's we're coming in, the chimney and venting world. It's a lot of it's like, for most, at least in our area, it's, you don't have to have it, right? A lot of it is, for most people, they just want it for an aesthetic thing. They're going to burn it 12 to 24 times a year, and it's centered around the holidays. But at the end of the day, most of the repairs are above $8 to our average ticket's probably $8,000 to $12,000. And sometimes it's more than that. So like, if I can come in and, what are you going to put your money on? Like, you have this punch list as a homeowner, and it's like, well, I need a new roof. That's more important than the fireplace, or, hey, I need new windows because they're seeping air. Like, we should probably fix that before we fix the fireplace. But if I can come in and offer you, financing, and just to help offset that burden, it's definitely helped, as far as, just are just taking that ease off the customer. When you can show them it's going to cost them, $500, $800 a month, and it's just like, oh, they can wrap your head around it a lot easier than, oh, it's $10,000, it's $12,000, or like in Aaron's, the list is like, what if keep for numbers, it's a $10,000 wood stove install. You're getting up to a $2,000 to $3,000 federal tax credit. Most states have a $500, so it's like $2,500 to $3,000 tax credit. And then I can offer refinancing on top of that. It's like, that's a no-brainer. Like, we can have that. We can go under contract this week and get it done by the fall, and you're in, you're able to offset the heating costs. And you're seeing it come around a lot more for looking for alternative fuels, just because the pricing and stuff. It's like, it's going back. I'm not saying it's going back to like the oil crisis and stuff like that, but like, fuel's expensive. Everything's expensive. So it's if you have abundance of wood and you can get a tax credit every year, why wouldn't you put a wood stove in your house to offset the heating bills? But to go back to, as far as financing, it was more like, I finance stuff. Just like anybody else, like, why not break that cost down and over if it's 0%, right? You don't want to go over that, because then you're into like 18 to 20% or whatever it is. So we work with a local financing company. There's different deals. Most of them, it's like 0% for the first 12 months, and then it goes up. So as long as you pay it off in 12 months, you're golden.
So my house that Chris installed the fireplace in, I got 3 heating ways. I heat my house 3 different ways. I've got baseboard heat, I've got a heat pump, and I got a fireplace. And honestly, one of my good friends has a farm, and he'll bring a dump truck of firewood to me for $185. So I can heat I got a rancher, so I can heat my entire first floor for $185 for almost the entire season if I wanted to. It's not going to be even heat, because the heat's primarily blowing into the main living dining area. But like, if the worst came to worst and we lost power, like, I've got a way to heat the house, and it's easy and cheap, especially if I have a generator. So there's some places that I've been in, most public or most populated areas and non-populated areas, where people use their fireplace as their primary heating source because they can't afford the electric or the oil or whatever is the hot topic of going up in value. Because I know oil last year I think it's through the roof. Guys were actually trying to see if they can get diesel to burn or old oil to burn in their boilers, because it was getting so expensive. So like, if you drop, I think even my propane last year at the ski house, I think it was like $2,000 to heat the house for just a season. And I'm like, God, man, it's high. So like, there's definitely a need and a niche for this kind of stuff, whether it be pellet or wood or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think anything as far as making this, at the end of the day, we're in the business to make money, but we're not like used car salesmen. We're there just to offer you a solution, to what your needs are. And financing is a good option. If you're in a service trade, there's so many type of, there's local vendors, there's national vendors out there. And you have to pay a little percentage on it, but if you build it into your cost, the customer's not going to know it. Like for 0% for 3 months, I think it's like 3% that I'd have to pay. So, you take $300 and you build it into your estimate, it's covered, you know what I mean? So, you shouldn't have to eat that cost, or you can be upfront with them. It depends on your state. If you're upfront, be like, hey, you can finance, but there's a financing fee. And like most people, you break that 3% over the course of 12 months, it's pennies on the dollar. So it's not like it's significant for them to not, finance.
The colder you are, the higher they'll pay. I know that much.
That's true.
All right, man, we're going to start wrapping this thing up. Tyler, is there anything that I missed you want to touch on, or Chris?
Not for me. No, this is, I just want to say thanks for coming on. This has been interesting. I know I've been saying this as we get people outside of real estate on. For me personally, I know it's really interesting because I get to learn a new business type, and I get to see how it operates. And Yeah, that's it. I appreciate it. It's been super interesting for me, and thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, well, thanks. Hey, thanks for having the opportunity to talk with you guys and your followers. It's always interesting. As far as what people do outside of the public service. Or what they got themselves into. So it's and we can all learn from each other. Like you put us in a group for a weekend, and you just have this mastermind. Like there's a lot of value to it. And I think that's the key, like, is networking. Like, go to these local places, these BNI groups, these luncheons that these people have, and just talk. Like, you gotta get out of your comfort zone, be willing to take a risk. And that's to work hard, man. Like, people, it's kind of cliche about working hard, but you gotta grind. And and then you just set your goals and start making a punch list and knock it out.
So my favorite, I got one question, but I'm gonna tell a quick story. My favorite, or my most, not favorite, I'll say memorable chimney fire was in the old executive office building, which is in the 1600 block of 17th Street. It's literally right next to the White House. And the building is probably one of the most beautiful architectural building in DC, in my opinion. It was built in 1888. It's a really, really cool building. If you ever get a chance to go in and take a look at it. But somebody was new working there, and there's old fireplaces in there, and he decided to light the paper from his office on fire in the fireplace. And these fireplaces have been bricked up for like 100 years, and he caused a massive amount of damage because he didn't know that anything about fireplaces. So that's my number one memorable. So Chris, if you can go back and give your younger self advice, and that's going to be like, I don't know, high school Chris, or like rookie Chris, or starting business Chris, or last week Chris, like what advice would you give yourself?
Like, I mean, if it's specific to my my career in the chimney world, like, I would have probably, instead of focusing on like landscaping and stuff like that, like I would have I'd probably done more in the masonry side of things. Like, I've always loved that. I just wasn't surrounded to go to do that, and I would really help my business along the way. But as far as advice goes, I mean, I think finding a couple mentors, whatever you're interested in doing, if it's real estate, it's business, it's just life. Like, there's so much value that once like, I'm not a young guy anymore. I just real like, I wake up and I'm sore, and like, I'm like, man, like, it you just I think the biggest thing, it's like, you just don't be so, I guess, ignorant, or naive, and be open-minded, take advice. You don't have to take it all, but I think just, if it was, young Chris, or a young person out there that's listening, like, find you a good mentor, someone that's worthy, right? It's got to be somebody that has value, or the things that you were interested in, or you look at them and you see their lifestyle and you're like, how can I get that way? And I haven't met a person that's not going to, at least, have an open door to teach you. Like, there's so much work out there. Like, even, there's competition, but at the end of the day, like, there's so much work, and that's like, I think probably the coolest thing about the chimney world. Like, it's not cutthroat. Like, I can call the guy next door, and say, hey, like, do you have this part? I can't get it in until next week, but I'm on the job, and he would probably give it to me. So that's the coolest thing too, is just, not being afraid to reach out to people and ask for advice and for help.
And have relationships and networking. It always comes back to that, to me.
It does.
So, all right. So Chris Miller with Traditions Chimney Sweeps LLC. He's now based out of Carroll County, which is just outside of Baltimore. He services the Baltimore and northern or southern Maryland. No, I guess you'd be like Montgomery County, Howard County. I don't think you're coming down to me anymore. Frederick County.
I'll come to you. Actually, I'm going to be down in College Park on Monday. I'll be in College Park. So,
all right, hit me up. We'll do lunch if you're free.
Okay.
All right, guys. Chris, thanks for hopping on and spending an hour and some change with us. And to all the listeners, thank you for following along. Chris, if they want to reach out to you, how would they reach you?
The easiest is probably just, I'll give you my email, which is Chris at traditionschimneysweeps.com. or you can just go to my website and fill out the submit form. That's probably easiest. Just put like, hey, listen to you on the podcast, and we can connect that way. So you can just go to traditionschimneysweeps.com and Google and fill out the request form. It's for appointment, but you can put in the notes what it's for, and I'll get it.
Now that you're a one-man show, I know you're getting all the requests.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I still want to try to get you getting a VA, but that's going to be another conversation for another day.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Thank you, and we'll talk to you here soon.
Yep. Have a good day, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.